All right, good day, everyone. Welcome to Conversations on Retail. My name is Matt Fifer. I'm here today with Brad Bogolea, the co-founder and CEO of Simbe. It's great to see you today. Brad, you have got a really exciting past. You're a guy who has not wasted much time in his life, and I'd love to spend a few minutes just giving our audience an opportunity to get to know you a little bit. But first of all, welcome.
Matt, thank you so much for having me.
So you grew up in Pennsylvania. You studied at Penn State. You studied engineering and entrepreneurship and computer science. You started your first company while in college. Talk about your upbringing and the curiosity that was created, or what made you the type of person that would pursue computer science and engineering and entrepreneurship simultaneously. What would cause you to feel like you could go about starting your first company, a technology company, no less, while you were studying?
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. So, I'd say it was fortunate at a young age. I grew up in sort of small town, sort of Pennsylvania, and I was able to come in contact with, technology in sort of the mid to late 90s while I was in school. And it was kind of this eye-opening opportunity for me is like our school district was one of the first to sort of get computers in the state. And it started painting sort of the possibilities of what technology could sort of really open up. So I would say that early introduction into the transformation that personal computing would really have was a big eye opener. I would say also sort of my upbringing. My mom and dad had me when they were sort of 18 and sort of 20. Neither of them had sort of gone to college. And so we grew up in this household a little bit when, something broke, it was like you sort of fixed it yourself. And so it started building this sort of culture of sort of ownership and resourcefulness around if you have a problem, go fix it.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. So when you talk about your university study, how'd you end up at Penn State?
Yeah. So as time went on, with my interest with computers and sort of technology, actually in high school, I developed a deep interest in the areas of sort of information security. And so in high school, I did work like assessing our high school's network security posture, where we sort of had vulnerabilities, help them get infrastructure upgrades for sort of the entire school district. And so this sort of set me on sort of an interesting path. And when I got to college, someone in the College of Engineering at sort of Penn State actually got my resume and said, hey, we think there's a really unique opportunity for you to do work with the Department of Defense and with the National Security Agency as a contractor, given your information security and information sort of assurance background. So I had obviously picked Penn State for sort of an in-state school, great engineering program, but it made most sense economically for sort of me and my family and being sort of close for home. But that's where I got to take my experience in sort of technology far further. And so throughout my summers in college, did work with the Department of Defense, which was an incredible experience. All the while, I could feel more of my entrepreneurial sort of DNA brewing in the background. I'd love the opportunity to use technology to start my own company someday.
Yeah. So talk about I Can Serve, the first company you started.
Yeah. So while I was in college, in addition to doing work in information security, I became really intrigued by the world of wireless sensor networks. So I had kind of seen this evolution from personal computers to everyone getting mobile phones. It was evident that wireless sensor networks would create this sort of Internet of Things sort of revolution. My father actually worked for the electric utility and strung sort of the high voltage lines. And one of the problems we started looking at was most consumers in their homes or businesses don't fully understand how and when they use energy in sort of their home. So we got this sort of idea of if you actually put a wireless sensor in your electric panel box, you could actually stream in real time your energy consumption to a dashboard within your home. And that's, really how I Can Serve was born with a number of other students at Penn State. And we actually funded that company in 2005 on state and sort of federal grant money. And there's unique opportunity to really sort of build that business. And it actually caught attention from a number of folks attempting to build similar technology in Silicon Valley. And that's actually what brought me out to Silicon Valley in 2007. That business was ultimately acquired.
Yeah. Well, then that's what I was going to say. You ultimately sold the business. You stayed on for a while, and then reconnected with an old friend from college who was kind of kicking around the idea of robotics. Talk about some of the early conversations and what led you towards Simbe.
Absolutely. So, I sort of gave me this opportunity to go on sort of a 10-year journey in the world of energy and utilities where went through two acquisitions and was ultimately part of a company that went public there called Silver Spring Networks, where I led our software service and sort of data analytics business. After Silver Spring went public, it was really keen for me to get back to my sort of entrepreneurial roots. And that's where I reconnected with my good college friend and CTO and co-founder now of Simbe, Shah. And Shah was spending time at this world-renowned robotics and computer vision think tank called Willow Garage, which was in Menlo Park. And Willow Garage kind of built two things. They had built what was known as the robot operating system, which is kind of Android or iOS for building robots. And they had built a very high-end robotic research platform called the PR2. And what it really showed was we were kind of on this precipice of this robotics sort of revolution. And, robotics and AI would have the opportunity to really sort of permeate sort of every industry. Much like many think tanks, Willow ultimately ran into some funding challenges. And so as that organization started to disband and I was wrapping up my time at Silver Spring, Sean and I really got together and said, this is the perfect time for us to sort of start a company. And ultimately, that's how Simbe was born. And where we really aligned was we wanted to build a very data-centric robotics and automation business. All the while, both Sean and I were very personally frustrated going out to sort of physical retail stores in the San Francisco Bay Area. And often we'd get to the store and, several items on our list weren't actually on shelf. Yeah. And so through our interactions with store teams, we very quickly realized that in many cases, these products were in the back room and nobody knew to restock, or nobody at the retailer knew the product wasn't on shelf or in the back room. And this sort of light bulb moment went off because so much of what I did in the energy world was instrument this industry that had been around, for a long time, provide great visibility to how consumers or businesses were using energy. We saw that there was this clear path to instrument a physical retail store in a way that provided immense value to everyone involved in that business.
Yeah. You had no background in retail. Clearly, you were just trying to make some of your personal pain go away, leveraging technology. On-shelf availability, obviously, a great big opportunity that's been around way, way, way too long, and it seems like the industry's made little progress until recent years with the addressing it. What was the earliest version of Simbe, and were your intentions just to build a robotics company that addressed the on-shelf availability problem, or did you have a broader vision even early on?
Yeah, our initial vision that we kind of hit the market with and started raising investment capital around was really this idea of automating retail. And the first application we really wanted to focus on was that data collection and sort of true visibility on what's happening on the shelf. We did believe over time that there would be the opportunity to sort of convey product, move product from back room to front of store. And maybe longer term, there would be the opportunity to sort of pick and manipulate products. But what became sort of very clear, Matt, was just the size of the prize just around sort of the data piece. And so we hyper elected to sort of focus there. And this was the very classic startup story. Sean and I grabbed another individual out of Willow, Jeff, who's our other co-founder and chief design officer. And we were three guys in a garage, largely bootstrapping and prototyping on our own money. And the first versions of Tally, our, shelf intelligence, store intelligence solution, were largely, 3D printed, laser cut wood, sort of duct tape, just building a solution that would allow us to get into an environment to show what was possible in capturing these stores at sort of this frequency and fidelity. And we took multiple paths. It was, as you know, it's not easy as a small company to get into the largest retailers of the world if you're not established. So we even prototyped in very similar synergistic environments. While we were getting in stores, we actually spent time in a number of public libraries, prototyping and sort of iterating on the solution, because you have books on shelves very similar to product on retail store shelves.
Yeah. Talk about your MVP and talk about the first retailer meeting.
Absolutely. So I would say as we build out the product, there were maybe kind of three fundamental chapters. There were the first in building the Tally robot itself and ensuring that it could safely navigate, fully map a full store environment and capture high quality shelf data. I would say chapter 2 was really building out sort of the full stack computer vision and AI. So you could take these high quality images and really derive intelligence. And then chapter 3 was building really all the business intelligence and user application tools around that data to connect it with sort of the retail sort of enterprise. So when we announced sort of Tally's concept to the market, we kind of had chapter 1 done partway through sort of chapter 2. And we previewed this concept to the market. And overnight, Matt, we had over sort of 500 global retailers sort of beating on our door. And so it was evident to us we had found real pain, but as a small company, it was not realistic to service sort of all of that interest. Yeah. So we focused on cultivating 2 or 3 critical launch partners out of the gate. One of those 3 was Schnucks Markets in St. Louis. And they became sort of the first retailer to actually, scale Tally's technology sort of chain wide. Now we have multiple, but it was an incredible development relationship with them. We actually flew out, and the goal was to do initially a week-long proof of concept in their stores. And within the first 90 minutes, we were in a store environment. Their chief information and supply chain officer was like, we want this in our top 3 stores. How fast can we move? And then we quickly moved to their top 16 stores, and then, quickly moved sort of chain wide. So there was an evolution there, and certainly give our retail partners like Schnucks an incredible amount of credit for being very thoughtful development partners.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they are the retail experts that, ran these businesses for tens or, hundreds of years.
Yeah. As you contextualized the technology and the capabilities of that earliest iteration, what did you learn about retail? I mean, was there anything that really sort of surprised you during that early testing with Schnucks?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece we were all intrigued by, and the retailer as well, Matt, I would say, was what we collectively refer to as like the size of the prize. What's the size of the prize here? And so as we know, this entire industry is dependent largely on a self-reporting data model. Store teams, when they have time and cycles, sort of doing periodic counts within stores, depending on sort of back office data. What we've proved to the industry sort of very quickly is there's often a disconnect between where a store's performance is perceived to be versus when you perpetually instrument sort of that store environment. Yeah. So once we had that aha moment collectively with a number of our partners, it really came down to, well, what's sort of the value case here? What's the ROI case? What is the size of the prize? And, the way we look at these types of things is there's, of course, a lot of value out of the gate around labor productivity. So instead of having your best people looking for problems, we can now just have them focused on fixing those issues. So how do you best qualify that? I would say the other piece we found across all of our national grocer customers in the US is typically 40 to 60% of the out of stocks are addressable at the store level. It's a product that's sitting in the back room that most people, just until someone, a store employee would come by and scan it out, you wouldn't know. And that may not happen sometimes for days or, weeks in some store environments or sort of scenarios. So addressing that controllability was a really big piece. And then pricing and promotional execution. I would say, as we know, the vast majority of retailers around the globe today are still on paper tags. And I would say many environments we step into, we see a 2 to 10+% tag error rate. So there was, huge opportunities sort of out of the gate. There were more, I would say, nuanced surprises. I think I was personally surprised in the Midwest how often some stores lose power in sort of Tornado Alley and these types of things and sort of building a product. Certainly was pleasantly surprised with the level of connectivity in these stores. Yeah. And the way store teams actually really embrace the technology, especially in a highly union-driven environment. It was evident out of the gate when this was clearly communicated that they view this as a power tool. If you think a power tool like a drill makes a carpenter more effective, move faster,
right?
People immediately had that realization.
Yeah, no, that's great. I've heard you talk in terms of retail's blind spots and how on a global basis it's worth trillions of dollars to the industry. Talk about retail's blind spots and do it in such a way to sort of introduce us to the Simbe of today. Give us sort of a broad perspective on what Simbe is doing today.
Yeah, absolutely. When we think about sort of this data gap or sort of blind spot that sort of exists today, what we're really talking about is in this new world of visibility, where can you capture value or sort of recapture value? And I would say the bucket that most folks start with is around sort of store operations, inventory intelligence, sort of inventory accuracy. And in many of these environments, we often see, sort of a 3 to 5x ROI on 60, 90, 120 days, just given sort of the size of sort of that problem and sort of prize. In many different environments, we see that, retailers can miss out on a very sizable portion of revenue. These can be as high as sort of 2 to 7% in some of these sort of store environments, very similarly on sort of the margin side. So how do we use this to best boost, both sort of top line and sort of bottom line and sort of the retailer? I would say, Matt, beyond store operations and sort of supply chain intelligence, we've seen a massive expansion in sort of the value equation for this type of technology. We have facilities teams using this data to understand what shelving fixtures they have in store. We have marketing teams using this data to understand, are there in-store retail media displays being executed sort of as intended? We have retailers now using this data to create a profit center in their business in much like the same way that they broker point of sale or shopper insight data to a Circana, a Nielsen, a dunnhumby. This bucket of real-time sort of shelf information can be very similarly sort of monetized. So we've been sort of supporting partners in that way. For us, we don't like to sort of necessarily explicitly call out the inventory distortion and sort of the deep challenges in the industry, but more so where the opportunities lie, from a value standpoint with all of this new data.
Yeah. You find that shoppers and associates inside those stores are warming up to the idea of robots wandering around capturing data and generating task lists?
Absolutely. I mean, to give a sense of scale, like we've traversed, more than 500 million kilometers in these stores. We process, more than we process a few 100 million images sort of autonomously in these environments sort of every day. And, Matt, my perspective's unique. Like, I live in Silicon Valley, I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. I often take a self-driving car to meetings. It's a different world, but if you look at where the bulk of our deployments are, although we're in nearly every state in the US and many, many countries sort of abroad, the highest concentration is actually in the Midwest and the Mideast. And so these are environments where consumers have not had the opportunity to see maybe a robot before. Maybe they have a robot vacuum cleaning at home, or robots or what they've seen in the movies. This is an area where we focused heavily on sort of Tally's design, very sleek, slender, thoughtful, sort of intuitive, blends naturally in the environment, and also clearly communicates what it does. Yeah. And so, we've been very pleased with the consumer feedback. And what I would say is I think one of the biggest surprises for me is how the younger generation, particularly children, really embrace it.
Yeah.
As a company, we almost need a full-time employee to deal with the number of letters that we get from
fan
kids
mail
all over the globe that love Tally, and they want Tally merchandise. Yeah. And so we've done some work in that area, just to really build on all this great momentum in the affinity for the technology that these folks have.
Who would have thought that your robot would be receiving fan mail? It's incredible.
Yes.
Incredible. So what does the future look like for Simbe, but also sort of project ahead 5 years for the industry? Do you see every single retail store eventually having some sort of robot capturing data and helping them identify and prioritize various insights, actions, so forth?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the future of Simbe today, there's been a lot happening. So we got our start in sort of pure play grocery. We've now still capturing a lot of business, a lot of great partnerships happening there, but we've expanded to a lot of different formats. So we've taken the technology that we've built, we've now ported that to like club, wholesale, cash and carry, mass merchandise, general merchandise stores. We've now done our first specific projects in pure play alcohol stores. And also this year signed our first major deals in hardware environments. So there's a massive sort of total available market or serviceable market expansion for this type of technology that's happening. The other piece that's happening as a company is we're evolving a little bit from product to platform. So we've had such great success with the Tally platform in these really large format environments. How do you take the type of technology that we've built to a convenience store? To other types of environments. So we have a lot of, I would say, other product development that's happening across fixed infrastructure, shrink and sort of security, and in a number of these other areas. So certainly we want to be retailers' preferred partner as it relates to in-store shelf intelligence, store intelligence, and provide a variety of products depending on the format or frequency of data that they need. We're seeing a lot more global expansion. So we're in 4 countries today. We certainly could be in a lot more, and will be in more sort of soon. As we look at the industry sort of overall, if I take a step back, retailers today have rising labor costs. They have rising cost of goods. The fundamental mechanics of a retailer's business, when you look at their traditional equation, isn't changing. I believe strongly that the only way to fundamentally change the visibility of the retailer's business and the cost structure is both through automation and AI. And this will create both a superior employee teammate experience as well as sort of customer experience. So to your point, Matt, I do believe that this type of shelf intelligence technology will be ubiquitous. And I think what we've shown to the market is the autonomous mobile platform can extract the largest amount of ROI most cost effectively in the majority of these environments. But there will become worlds where robots and fixed cameras work together. There'll become worlds where in certain formats or certain areas, a fixed camera solution, may work better. And this is why as a company, like we're building all of those things.
Yeah. I go back to something you said earlier in the conversation. You talked about how, exceptions being worked by store level associates when they have time. And I think that's the biggest problem, or one of the biggest problems, certainly inside a retail store environment, is it's never the priority. And the great thing about robots is that is their job. It's not something that they do when they have time. That is their job. And so you just have to think that this is going to be a real game changer industry-wide on a global basis when working exceptions and recovering lost sales and identifying hazards, trip hazards and spill hazards before they occur, and all these other things that are prioritized by the technology is going to be great for everyone.
Absolutely. And I think one of the ways the industry should really look at this is, typically for something, you end up with this perpetual asset, which normalizes to maybe something like $8 to $10 per hour. Where in today's labor market, you will have something that will do it better, faster, sort of cheaper, and better empower the store teams that you have to focus on the more meaningful tasks: customer service, restocking, picking online grocery orders, these types of things. So we certainly do believe this type of technology will become ubiquitous. I think some of the challenges, Matt, that retailers deal with is this data touches really every facet of the business. So this is a transformation project. And, that's an area where as a company, we spend a lot of time working with our retail partners, helping them map that journey on what, critical priorities or use cases they want to focus on, sort of first.
Yeah. And the best thing about robots is they always show up. They don't call in sick. They don't get recruited away for more money at a different store. So they're incredibly reliable. Brad, congratulations to you and to your team. I mean, what a journey. For you personally, but certainly the team you pulled together. Congratulations on your success. Congratulations on your growth. And what would be the very best way for someone on the outside that is curious? I mean, obviously, you don't have just a lot of people sitting around contemplating the investment, but the companies that are interested, what's the very best way for someone to engage Simbe?
And absolutely. So the best way is to really come out to sort of our website. And if you're a retailer, if you're an investor, you're a partner, we have a number of standard mechanisms to sort of get in contact with us. But you can visit simberobotics.com. And, we'd love to hear from you. And we hear from folks, all around the world sort of every day that are, trying to manage, some of these challenges. And we certainly think there are incredible opportunities, to collaborate. Certainly, I welcome people to reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. I love meeting people from all across the industry, all the time and learning from their experiences.
Brad Bogolea, co-founder and CEO of Simbe, thank you so much for making time to visit. It's been a lot of fun for me getting to know you personally and to learn more about Simbe and past, present, and future of robotics at retail. Thank you so much.
Matt, it was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Have a great day.